Welcome back. Good start to trade. Nifty holding with solid gains. So let's get stock specific then. Godrej Consumer, the Q3 business update suggested that the FMCG sector is witnessing a bit of a slowdown post the festive season. And weak demand from the rural segment as well. To assess demand, the growth outlook from year on, we're joined by Shah, CFO at Godrej Consumer, who joins in. Hi, Samir. Morning. Thanks so much for joining in. Well, before we get to the numbers and the other nitty-gritties, I want to focus on the rural space first. We've been getting some mixed feelers in the last couple of weeks or so that maybe there is signs of a bit of a bounce back. For you, rural, I think, is 30%, right? Are you echoing the same, that rural India could be bottoming out?
Good morning, Nigel, and thanks for having me on the show. No, you're right. I mean, over the last 3-4 quarters, rural has been quite sluggish generally for the sector. But for us in the last quarter, rural growth was matching urban growth, which still is lower as compared to the historical trends, wherein rural has outperformed by 1.5x or 1.7x to urban. So having said that, rural has been impacted largely due to inflation, which we have seen over the last 3-4 quarters. Going ahead, we do expect rural consumption to recover gradually because inflation will come down as we are seeing, driven by the drop in key commodities, and also a lot of infrastructure investments which are getting executed as we speak and also expected over the next 3-4 quarters.
Samir, good morning. Is there a pre-election year kind of cyclicality that you've seen in earlier earlier periods? Government spending goes up, especially more money in the hands of the sort of potential rural consumer, that kind of thing. Does that also come into play?
Good morning, Prashant. Yeah, it's quite likely. That's because not just of heightened investments in run-up to the election, but also because of low basis which we have had in rural over last 3-4 quarters. I think it should also get complemented with the inflation abating over a period of time. So yeah, it looks like there could be a little bit of bout of upswing in rural over next 4-5 quarters, driven by a mix of a lot of these factors.
So can you give us an update on how different verticals are doing, Samir? How was the performance in the household insecticide segment? That's been a segment that has been a laggard for you in the past. And overall as well, home care, personal care, what are the kind of growth trends that you see?
Hi, Sonia. Good morning. This quarter, I think, was one of the best quarters in terms of having a very broad-based growth for us. So both the larger categories in India, home care as well as personal care, did see a double-digit growth rate. I think this has happened after maybe 6 or 7 odd quarters for us. And within the home care and personal care category, all the subcategories, which is household insecticides or air fresheners, or in personal care, hair colors or personal wash, have done extremely well. So this quarter has been quite robust in terms of very broad-based growth for us across all the major as well as subcategories in which we play in.
Okay, Mangalam is also here. Of course, as you know, he tracks the stock very closely. Mangalam, over to you.
Well, hi Samir. As far as the growth is concerned, etc., we have some of the data that you've given. One of the worries on the street also was with regards to management and the leadership. I mean, just wanted you to reassure that there is no change in the near future when it comes to the leadership, etc., right?
Absolutely. Hey, Mangalam, good morning. Yeah, those rumors were all rubbish, to be honest. I think, thankfully, your channel also carried the news on the same day that management has sort of, rubbished all those, kind of claims or rumors. And there is absolutely nothing, in it. It's more of the same as what we have been having since last, kind of 12 to 18 months under the new leadership.
Right. And as far as Indonesia is concerned, how long before it goes into positive territory? Because now the growth decline has been stemmed. How long before it goes into positive, and what's the steady state growth expected there?
Yeah, I think maybe a quarter or so more, Mangalam, of kind of weak performance or soft performance, I would say, and then come FY24, we should start seeing meaningfully kind of steady performance to strong performance in Indonesia. What we have been doing over the last couple of quarters is putting in a lot of input metrics, whether it be on category development initiatives or whether it be on route to market in Indonesia, which I think should complement with good macros, what we're seeing in the markets locally. So to that extent, we do expect maybe after Q4, a much improved performance, and not just for 1 year, but hopefully for many more years to come in Indonesia.
Okay, all right. Samir, raw material costs have cooled off. So gross margins are likely to recover. I think you hinted about that as well, and that should be, obvious for the second half of this year. Could you quantify what kind of a gross margin improvement we're looking at? That's point number one. And how much of that saving that you'll be, enjoying be plowed back into advertising and other expenditure, promotion expenditure?
Yeah, I think one thing about last quarter, which we're also very happy with, is the quality of profits, Nigel. So, the gross margins are expanding, the so-called controllable costs are going down. We are using that pool for reinvesting in terms of marketing investments, and all said and done, the EBITDA margins mostly will, kind of be maintained in last quarter to very marginally expanding. But going ahead, we do expect this trajectory of gross margin expansion to continue. One, because the commodity prices are lower on a YY basis. We don't expect any meaningful shift in commodity trends, at least over the next 3-4 quarters globally. And also we have low bases. So some part of it will get reinvested back for growth, and some part of it will go towards expansion in the overall operating profits. So that's the game plan which we have, at least for next 4-5 quarters.
Sameer, you want to quantify that gross margin expansion? What could it be? A couple of 100 basis points in the second half? And also, if you could tell us the updated ad spends as a percentage of sales. I think it was around 8.5%. You could correct me on that number. But what's the ideal spend as a percentage of sales?
Well, I think on the former, it's difficult to quantify, Nigel, because there are too many moving parts in terms of mix, in terms of pricing, in terms of commodity trends. But directionally, as I said, there will be expansion in gross margins, at least for next 4 to 5 quarters on a year-over-year basis. I think on ad spends, typically, there is no thumb rule, but HPC, FMCG companies would have ad spends anywhere in range of 10 to 12%. Having said that, we are relatively on the lower end of the band. So we do expect our ad spends to sort of, move up gradually. Having said that, we will also focus equally on the quality of spends and not just quantity of spends.
Okay, so that's good to hear that there would be an expansion in gross margins at least for the next 4 to 5 quarters. Earlier, you had said that your volume growth overall will improve to mid-single digits in the second half of the year. Would you want to stick to that guidance? Would you want to change it given how, challenging the rural environment is?
Yeah, I think at this point in time, we do believe that for second half of the year, the volume trajectory would be very robust as compared to what we have seen over last 3-4 quarters. Some of the category development initiatives are reaping rich dividends on that front. So, yeah, we should see much improved performance in H2. But interestingly, Sonia, for next year, we remain quite optimistic in terms of robust volumes in key markets like India as well as Indonesia.
Okay, we will let you go on that note. Thanks a lot for joining in and all the best for the quarters to come. Since we started talking about Godrej Consumer and the management talking about, gross margin expansion, let's also tell you what you can expect from the earnings season, quarter se quarter tak. This is our segment where we talk about expectations from the FMCG space. So, Mangalam, take it away.